Well met, everyone. I am Rich the Lich, and today I am doing a review of Baldur's Gate: Descent into Avernus. This is the recently released, as of this morning in fact, official product by Wizards of the Coast. This is a hellish adventure that will take players all the way from level 1 through 13. Now, I say it's an adventure, and even there are parts in the description where it says diabolical dangers await in this adventure for the world's greatest role-playing game. But there is a wealth of content here, so much so that I think it is a little bit better to call this perhaps a campaign, an entire thing that you can run your gaming group through to take them, as I said, from level 1 all the way to 13. So what I'd like to do is run this through my review system, and hopefully by the end of this video, after seeing what my scores are and listening to my comments and my thoughts on it, you might be a bit better informed as to whether or not this might be something that is a good fit for you and your gaming group. Let's jump into it. Up first, layout, design, and editing. First off, I am reviewing, as might be indicated here, a digital version of this. This is not a PDF, but it's the digital version that was downloaded and is accessible through the D&D Beyond interface. I do not have the actual book itself, but I am confident in talking about the build quality of the book, the actual tactile feel of it. And the reason for that is because as an official WotC product, as an official book, there is a certain standard of design. There is a certain standard of quality control that all of their books go through. And I've got numerous books on my shelf: Player's Handbook, DMG, Monster Manual, Volo's Guide, Xanathar's, Curse of Strahd, so on and so forth. So for example, if I was to pull these three books, which are actual physical books, of course, I've got Ravnica, I've got Curse of Strahd, and I have Out of the Abyss. If I was to pull these three up and close my eyes, shuffle them, and someone handed me one, I wouldn't be able to tell you which book was which. And that's what I mean, is they all feel the same. So I'm quite confident that from the pictures I've seen and even videos I've seen where someone is flipping through the actual book on some review copies that are already online on YouTube, the book looks the same, it feels the same. So as far as binding, pages, build quality, cover, the glossiness, the art of it all, it's going to be exactly what you would expect if you already have some of the official WotC books on your shelf. Now, as far as actual content and size-wise, we are looking at a book here that I believe is numbering around 250-ish pages, which is about the exact same thickness and breadth of the Out of the Abyss, if you happen to have that, or similar to like some of the other real long adventure series like Storm King's Thunder, things of that nature. So as I said, even though it mentions it as adventure, this is some content here that I believe should be able to fill up an entire campaign. Basically tell your players, hey guys, we're going to run through Avernus, and when you start that way, and when you finish it, you could probably just move on and start a whole new campaign. There's that much stuff here. But layout, design, and editing, there's not a whole lot I can talk about there, or that I should need to. It is prim and proper. Everything is in tip-top order and tip-top shape. It should be. This is an official WotC product. As I said, I'm sure they have an entire layout, design, editing, a design team. There's an entire process that they go through to make it feel familiar. One thing that you know about all the 5th edition D&D books, if you were to look at a book from 3rd edition or 4th edition or 5th edition, there's always a distinct feel. There's always a certain font that's used. There's a certain sort of what I call the D&D swoosh and whatnot that identifies a book on the shelf immediately as that's a current version of D&D book. The same goes for the layout, design, and editing. As far as what you're looking at on screen, you're going to have just that familiar font style. Everything just looks good. It's edited well. You know, the layout of everything is, and it doesn't matter that I'm looking at it in digital format here, where I've got the efficiency of sort of hyperlinks that I can click on to navigate through. Everything is just laid out as it should. When you get into sections where you are reading about adventure module stuff and you're reading something to the players, it gives you these little boxes, as you would often find in modules, where this is basically saying, when the characters approach this location, read or paraphrase the following box text to the players. It's giving that to you in box text format, so on and so forth. Art is interjected at various points where it needs to be. You're going to get official, highly produced, top-level quality stuff here for layout, design, and editing, so I'm going to give this 2 out of 2 possible points. Next, let's take a look at art. As far as art goes, I mean, if we take a look at the front cover, this screams to us immediately. There is also another, I'm going to put it on screen real quick, a wonderful piece of art by Hydro74. He's done a bunch of incredible work for D&D, kind of an alternate special edition cover that you can get, I believe, from your local gaming store. I don't know if you can find that on Amazon, whereas you can buy the actual book on Amazon itself. But this is the front cover, the main base front cover, which is just gorgeous. There's Zariel, the fallen angel, if you will. And I mean, that already screams to us as something that's really, really good. Now, going through, we've got a bunch of new creatures, or at least modifications on ones that may have been labeled or detailed out in some other content, some other D&D books. But when you have this artwork here, I mean, there's a new creature, there's a piece. When you get down into Baphomet, there's a piece of his art. Blizzow, whatever his name is, the Krokektoik, which is one of the pets of one of the demon lords. So, you know, here it's just showing sort of the iconography or the symbols that the Fists of Bane, the Cultists of Bane, might use, so on and so forth. You've got these three here, which are talking about different cultists. The artwork is on point. Similar to layout design and editing, Wizards of the Coast, and the fact that they can also pull from their art database or their artist database from Magic the Gathering, they just have hundreds of artists sort of on their Rolodex that they can pull from and say, hey, we need some art from this. So they should have the highest level of concept art from the best concept artists in the world. So the art, where it is top notch. Another really beautiful thing about this is there is a section in the back of the book, an appendix called Story Concept Art. Now, with something like this, you're looking at the sort of visual ideas and the conceptual aspects of it that are trying to, created by the artists, that are trying to start to convey a sense of what this place might look and feel like. And these are things that may not have been used in the book as far as actual pieces to represent something. But what I like is this is almost like a mini dozen 10 to 20 page section that just shows some concept art that maybe wasn't used, but it just adds that much more. I mean, artwork in and of itself can stand alone. So you get this stuff here, you know, and I love that you can see like one of the main NPCs that you'll find is Mahadi, you know, and it just shows you sort of the iterative process that the artist went through in creating him. You know, you've got that one this thingy. Let me go back to it really quick. You've got this guy, which is one of the, you know, it's a CR14 demon pet of one of the demon lords. And you have this concept art for him, which shows you just sort of how he got to where he is now. You know what I mean? So, I mean, this is just the epitome of art and top level artwork by some of the best concept artists in all of entertainment industry. So it's really cool that you get all of this stuff. I mean, I'm scrolling through it. And as I said, for every new monster, it's there. It talks about the Flying Fortress of Zariel, who's the angel female on the front cover. I love average size Chris Perkins, so kind of small human, just to give you some sense of scale. That's here. So there's just so many little good bits. I mean, here they're Team Yanogu. So this is kind of just brainstorming and concepting out a few of the different images for the actual Demon Lord himself. So it's just cool that they gave you this. This here sells the entire thing. I mean, look at this artwork by Alexi Bricklot. These are guys that I've been following for 20 plus years that I know are among, I mean, we're talking about guys that have drawn for like Star Wars and Lucasfilm and Pixar and things like this. So the highest level of stuff. And I mean, this thing just sells that whole Mad Maxian, and I'm talking to the newer one with, I think it's Tom Hardy and Charlize Theron. So, I mean, look at this artwork here. I mean, and this is just sort of throwaway that was added into the back of the book of, here's a piece that was made to give some inspiration for the book, to show to the designers and the writers, but it's not actually used anywhere else within. So the fact that they've included that tells us that we're getting a bunch of just wonderful pieces of artwork. Here's kind of the, you know, this screams something from the Mad Max movie, right? Where you're talking about the various vehicles and the infernal war machines and things of that nature. So awesome, awesome artwork as far as that goes. As I said, all of the monsters, the new creatures, they each have their own accompanying artwork. The maps are world class. done by, I believe it's Dyson Logos and some of the best cartographers that WotC has access to. Digital format here on D&D Beyond, I do get 2 versions. I don't believe they often do this with the actual hardcover physical book, where you're going to get generally a lot of times like the player's version type of stuff, where it doesn't have as much of a legend, where here you're going to get 2 versions of it. I do believe this is a page spread, where for Baldur's Gate, since it's a very important location within the adventures here, you'll open up that book and you'll get it kind of on both pages. So you've got artwork for, if I look at this, I'm not going to click on every one, but there's a bunch here. Also, really cool, in the back of the book, there is an actual pullout. This is in the physical book itself. There's a pullout of a folded map that you can laminate and hang on your wall. And what you'll get on one side is you'll get this map here, which is Elturel. I'll talk about that in content. And then on the other side, you'll actually get the map of Avernus. We're looking at, again, the best of the best in cartography. Look at just the outside and border edges. So this is a really cool map that you'll get in the actual physical book. You'll pull it out of the back of the book. It's kind of just glued in there, and you'll kind of, open that up, and you can bring this to your table, laminate it, so you have things on both sides. So the maps are outstanding where the art needs to be. There's Infernal War Machines, as I said, which is kind of a new thing, similar to the ships in Ghosts of Saltmarsh. You'll get some little concept art with that. You'll get artwork interjected, of course, throughout the book. If I was to just click on the Path of Devils adventure story arc, you'll see here, look at this artwork. It's top notch. Just accompanying images to help you kind of help describe the scenario or the environment to your players. And here's the map where it needs to be, wonderfully well done. Here's a player version kind of in a black and white, so I can simply print this out and bring it to my table. Artwork is as good as it's ever going to get. You're not going to find any better artist that could have done it better. So where it needs to be, and I just love that little, as I said, dozen-page section of story concept art in the back. So for artwork, we have to give this 3 out of 3 possible points. Now for the nuts and bolts of it all, the content. What are we getting here? We have, between the appendices and various things in the back of the book, we're looking at a total of, I believe, 255 pages. So it is exact. I believe Out of the Abyss is, if I was to look at the back of it, 255 pages as well. So if you have that book, or even something similar to a Ravnica or a Curse of Strahd or Storm King's Thunder, you're getting about that much content. I believe you can buy this actual hardcover physical book on Amazon right now. They have a sale on it for $30 at your gaming store. I think it's going to be probably $49.99. As I said, there is that awesome alternate cover as well. This cost me $29.99 on D&D Beyond. So you're getting about 255 pages. The bulk of the adventures and all the story that's happening within is about 155 pages, kind of in the middle sections, not including the appendices and the maps and whatnot. So what you are getting is adventure that takes players to sort of 3 different locations. There's a little bit of a spoiler here. So if you know that your players are watching this video, or you want them to, be aware. I'm not going to go over every little aspect. I just got the book myself this morning, so there's no way I've run this whole, this content. So I don't know every little thing, but I've thumbed through it all already, and I've read through a lot of the stuff. So there's some spoilers here, but I'm not going to reveal too much. You're going to be taken to sort of 3 different places. You'll be in kind of 2 cities. So you'll be in Baldur's Gate. You'll be in the fallen city of Elturel, which is kind of the overall concept of the whole thing of there is a city within, we're talking Faerun and Forgotten Realms here. So that's important to identify, is we are looking at some spaces here that exist within Forgotten Realms. When you're dealing with some of the creatures and the cultists, it's dealing with Baal and Bane and Mirkul. So we're talking about gods from Forgotten Realms. Can you run this if you're not playing in Forgotten Realms? I think you certainly can. So one thing I always talk about with content, of course, right, is it something I can bring to my table right now? Or is it something that might inspire me to be able to create my own twist and turn it and get it to my table anyway? There's a lot here. I'll talk through some of those things. But the story of Baldur's Gate and where that starts, and Elturel, how it has fallen, and it is basically being pulled down into hell, the first layer of hell of Avernus. And your PCs are adventuring within this module, within this campaign setting. I call it that because I believe it can encompass the entirety of a campaign, to see if Elturel can be rescued, and also to prevent that same fate from happening to Baldur's Gate. So you're going to adventure in sort of the first sort of act of the story into Baldur's Gate and learning about the various things that are going on there that kind of give you the information you need. And also, of course, to be able to level the players through level 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. And then they'll go to Alterel itself, or Elturel, I keep mispronouncing it, which is sort of the fallen city. And now that's kind of like the middle zone between the above world and getting into hell. And now you're looking at getting into maybe upwards of level 7, 8-ish or so. And then the third act is where you're actually going into Avernus itself. And there is just a wealth of detail and information there. So, as I said, if you're playing in Forgotten Realms, it's an automatic fit. Now, here's some things to consider. If you have hellish landscape and you're using the planes of hell, which can exist outside of Forgotten Realms. I mean, there's many, many versions and worlds of D&D that just will use those different environments and planes. There's definitely a lot here. There's a lot of content here. One of the biggest strengths to the content that's here as well is you're getting the inspiration. As I said, even if it's not something you can immediately just throw and put onto your table, you're getting so much inspiration as to how to kind of create a story arc and how to transition players into almost 3 different feelings and different chapters of your campaign. And everything that happens within Avernus, it has so many different instances where it talks about, here is what it feels like, and here's what are the features, and here's that oppressive nature, and just, it does such a good job of selling that point of reminding us that this is not some place we want to be. And it also does a good job of reminding us that this is something that's so very different from the mountainous region or the forest or the city or the tundra landscape of your normal material plane. And I like that for inspiration because it's something that can be used if you're running your players through the Feywild or the Shadowfell or the Plane of Fire or whatever landscape that you're trying to sell the players on this fact that this is a very alien landscape to you. It even mentions, as far as the map of Avernus itself, that there is no scale created because distances in getting from this location to that location is not easily quantified. Like, there's so much weirdness to it. Like, it may take you 3 miles and an hour to get from one place to the next, but going right back to that previous place, it might take you 6 to 8 hours. And there's just that weird sense of time, and there's never a true night and day cycle, and it gives you that foreign aspect to it. But it's not just giving you the flavor and the story of it on description. It's giving you mechanical things. When you kill demons that are roaming in Avernus, they spew forth and leave pools of demon ichor, which has a effect which causes you to roll Constitution. Certain spells and Mage Hand manifest as like a claw. Magic has changed, and there's things of just normal things on your character sheet that no longer function as you thought they should function. Everything is evil. Obviously you're living in the first plane of hell in Avernus, but yet there's still NPCs that you can talk with and interact with. They're trying to thrive and survive here, just as you are. So even though they're evil, you may have things that you can sort of come to the table with to negotiate with them. The content in and of itself runs the gamut, especially when you're dealing with Baldur's Gate first, and then you're dealing with Elturel, and then you're dealing with Avernus. There are some aspects where it's just straight up roll initiative, very heavy combat, but then early on there's a lot of heavy investigative and intrigue work. When you get to Avernus, you would think, well, we're going to hell. This is all just a combat type of campaign. No, it's not. Because when you get there, you arrive at a place called Fort Knucklebone, which is sort of your first, we're in a place that we don't want to be. We don't belong here. And yet Fort Knucklebone is a place where there's sort of a gang and the whole place is overseen by a hag. So you have to kind of tread lightly through social aspects. And now you're dealing with being in Avernus and being in a plane of hell, but you're now having to rely on sort of your skill list rather than just straight up weapon and magical combat. So it runs the spectrum on the pillars of gameplay, of exploration, of social, of combat. And that's, I think, just truly well done when it comes to content. Even when you die, the devils may start to bargain with you. You know, it talks about various aspects of that when you're making death saves and the sort of variant rules to play with. And you're dealing with devils who have a certain hierarchy and have a certain code and sort of code of conduct and set of laws that they would follow, though they're very evil. And that constant negotiation process can play with the PCs, especially when you're dealing with something that's so overtly threatening. And I love that it creates this content where you can throw it to your players and say, there's things here that will just outright kill you. So don't just think roll initiative and try and attack everything you see, even though you know it's evil, because these things are more powerful than you. So what's another way that you might be able to overcome these obstacles? And the content here, without going over the spoilers, as I said, fills and covers that whole and runs the whole gamut. And as I said, it isn't just mentioning it to the DM and saying, here's some things to think about. It's giving you actual mechanical things of roll this and make this DC against this in order to better negotiate with these guys so that it doesn't just turn into a full TPK and so on and so forth. As far as other content that you're getting, you are getting magic items. If I look at the little list here, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. We have 12 new magic items. There's accompanying artwork for a lot of it. A lot of these things are very powerful. These are things that are, of course, referenced in the various throughout the adventures and whatnot. But there are just some really cool bits here. So you've got 12 new magic items. As far as creatures, these are all new ones that are not already in the monster manual. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 new creatures. And they run all the way from, there's actually even more than 16, because when I look at the Bane cultists, we've got the Fists of Bane, the Iron Consul, and the Black Gauntlet of Bane. And here we're looking at things that are like a CR of 1/2, all the way up to Zariel herself, who is a CR of 26. So we're looking at creatures that run the gamut from CR 1/4, 1/2, all the way up to CR 26, among the most powerful things that have been printed in any official books. So you've got a bunch of new creatures. There are backgrounds that are talked about in the Baldur's Gate section. There's an entire gazetteer of content when you're dealing with Baldur's Gate, because there's just so much going on there where you're dealing with not just you're dealing with more the social and exploration pillar of D&D and gameplay, where you're having to negotiate and wrangle your way through kind of a corrupt city to get some initial, foothold into what's going on with the whole story of what this whole adventure is about. And it gives you a bunch of new bits as to ways that current backgrounds from the player's handbook might be changed, or some new charts you might want to roll on that fit within Baldur's Gate. But there is also a completely brand new background. There's one single new background called the Faceless, which is really, really cool. So you have a new background. You have like 12 new magic items. You've got 16 new creatures entirely. You have content all the way from 1 through 13 that begins in a city, that goes into a fallen city, that goes down into the plane of hell. You have NPCs that you're going to interact with. You have situations where you think this should be a thing where we should just fight, but there's other ways to wrangle that in. You've got infernal war machines and look at this section: stat blocks, creature and cargo capacity, armor classes, damage thresholds. There's rules for it of how does it apply with opportunity attacks. When you're on certain parts of the war machine, how do you use it in combat? Here's entire stat cards that you can use. So you can take this and maybe apply this to other vehicles and things like that you might have in other campaigns, not just for this. So there's an entire war machine section, just like there was in Ghosts of Saltmarsh with ships. So you have extra little bits of content that you can certainly use outside of what's here. So I think I'm excited. I honestly, I hope you can hear that in my voice. You've got enough content here that will take you through an entire campaign. I think this is one of the more interesting and worthwhile pieces of content that I've purchased. I have Out of the Abyss. I have Curse of Strahd. I really like Curse of Strahd, but I've never run my players through it. I have Out of the Abyss. I've used it for some inspiration, but I haven't run my players through it. I rarely run pre-published adventure module stuff. This is one that at the end of my Ravnica campaign, I'll throw it to my players, certainly, and take a vote. But this is something that I see I can run my players through. I like that you have to kind of wrangle in whether this is a fit for your group, sort of thematically, and the vibe and flow of it. It's very oppressive. It's in hell. So there's some very dark twisted things. You know, it's a very, and it mentions that it gives you little bits of like food just never tastes the same. There's almost no satisfaction in any success. There's nothing that the PCs can ever just sort of thrive in and just say, man, this feels good. It's a very dark, oppressive thing. But with those little aspects of redemption, and we might be able to kind of sway things and move things to the side of good. There's a lot here. And I love that all of the evil and darkness here. Now, the demons are certainly demons. It's kind of Hulk smash, kill them before they kill and destroy everything. But with the devils and the various machinations of those things, I like that evil here has so many layers that there's ways of wrangling. You know, they all have an ulterior motive. They all have a purpose. They all have something they're trying to achieve. And I like that you can take something so dark, hellish, and evil, but yet you're almost kind of just looking for those small little moments of light. And I believe that that can create such a wealth of contrast. And it's a good selling point for the entire bulk of the content here, because it's something that you can bring to your table and you can see just an entire arc of evolution for how your players might even run. They may go into this thinking, I want to play this type of character and I want to play this way, but it may be enough. There may be enough here for even your player to have to adapt and change their goals of their character. And maybe, you know, you have the paladin that's coming in, I want to kill everything and I want to just make this place good again. But there's a lot of ways that this thing can be run and a lot of different angles that you can, there's so much replayability here. So for content, I have to give this a perfect 5 out of 5. This is my final score. All being told, I hope that you got a little bit of a gist. I didn't want to give any spoilers here. There's a lot of good bits here. If you like any of my other reviews and you like any of the other stuff I've talked about and have a general feel for kind of understanding the things that I like and the things I don't like, and for me to give this a perfect 10 out of 10, it says a lot about this content. So on D&D Beyond, as I said, you can get this for $29.99. I believe you can buy the actual physical book on Amazon for $31. At your local gaming store for $49.99. Special edition book is out there as well. Beautiful artwork. Layout design and editing is typical WotC, perfect, top-notch. Content will take you through an entire campaign, about a year, if not more, all the way from level 1 to 13 or 14. And then there's many other ways that you can go within the content itself. There's just a lot. There's social interaction, there's exploration, there's intrigue, there's using your player skill list and those that maybe are not good at fighting, but they're good at investigative stuff. There's obvious fights, there's vehicle combat. It goes to Mad Max and hell and fire and burning. And that's all I have for you folks. Thanks everyone for watching, and take care.